Back in 1998, we created a concept called Roth contributions and Roth conversions. Now, the bottom line is the amount you can contribute was very small, and the amount you can convert was very, very limited by adjusted gross income. And frankly, Wall Street wanted to have very little to do with it. A lot of people are unaware of the differences between contributions and conversions and what changed in 2007, effective 2010, regarding Roth conversions. Join us on Consider This Program today as we break down the information for you. Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Chris Rodgers.
Happy to have you along, Chris. Chris is one of our associate advisors of the Financial Enhancement Group, a finance major from Anderson University, happy graduate, been in the financial services for a while. This is your second company in the financial services. A little different than the first?
Absolutely. It's a night and day difference.
Just a little bit. And we'll take it. It's one thing on the bank side, another thing in the independent registered investment advisory side. You know, when I taught at Purdue, I realized, and in our mind, in the financial services mind, every day I have to deal with the difference between contributions and conversions. And what I learned trying to teach, 21-year-old minds, and I taught the capstone course at Purdue, is that contribution and conversion is something that's easy to invert. And then I started dealing with our families that we take care of at the Financial Enhancement Group, and I realized they were confused too. So I always tell people there's two C's in the world of the Roth. There's Roth contributions, there's Roth conversions. The only thing that they have in common is they both say Roth and begin with a C. There's a huge difference between a contribution and a Roth conversion. Chris, tell me the difference.
Yes, absolutely, Joe. And I think, before I get into the actual differences of them, I think, we should just make sure we take a step back and make sure we also define, really what the Roth is and how it's different from the tax-deferred side. So any money that you put in that goes into a 401k that could be tax-deferred basically just means when you need to take those dollars out, they're going to be taxed at that point in time.
At whatever the rate happens to be.
Absolutely, yes. And on the other side, when we talk about the Roth, that is money that has already been taxed and will continue to grow tax-free forever. So it's very important to make sure we separate the differences between those two, and that will kind of help lead the conversation here. So really when we talk about Roth contributions versus conversions, so the contribution side is solely based on money that you are putting into a Roth IRA. It's going to, some people can, some people can't contribute to them depending on your income because there are limits. But the Roth contribution is really just being able to put money into a Roth IRA at the end of the day. Where we talk about the Roth conversion side, rather, is when we start to look at moving money that is in your IRA or the tax-deferred side over to the tax-free bucket over a period of time. And that's really where we come in to start to build a lot of tax diversification for the families that we take care of. And so that's kind of the main two differences between the two, and it's something that we think is very important given where taxes are going in the future.
Now, Chris, I hate paying taxes. Virtually everybody listening to this, Joe, hates paying taxes. Yes. Why in the world? Because what I just heard you say was, I want you to take money today, willingly, out of a tax-deferred account. I want you to pay taxes on it today and put it into this account that's going to grow tax-free forever, you said. It's probably not forever because
it could change.
Everything does exit. Well, but everything does exit, right?
Yes.
When I die 10 years later, it's got to come out if my kids get it, or when Barb's gone, that's there. Why would I even want to remotely consider paying taxes? I hope you hear the cynicism. Why would I remotely want to consider paying taxes on that money today in order to have something in the future?
Yeah, and Joe, that is a great question, and I think it's also important just for our listeners and viewers to know that it's important that you are sitting down with a fiduciary and someone that can take a look at your individual situation, because each person is going to be completely different. Joe's tax bracket is completely different than mine, and so really But when we talk about actually making the decision, it comes down to where the current tax code is today and where it is or could be going in the future. So for us, at least at the Financial Enhancement Group, we are focused on, not just tax planning today, but for today and tomorrow. That's part of our fiduciary focus that you've probably heard Joe talk about over the years. And so what we know today is that the current rates were put in place back in 2016 in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And so we know that they are currently in place, but they are actually set to sunset, meaning that they will go back to the original rates prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So what that means is that once those rates go back to what they were prior to where they are today, they're actually going to be at a higher clip than what they are as of today. So it's important to make sure that we are looking at, this is your current rate today, but after 2025, when that tax code sunsets, those rates are going back. So it's important to recognize that rates today are lower than where they're going to be in the future, and it could make sense to start paying some dollars today, even though it hurts our pockets.
The concept was very good. Now, remember that it's not 2016; it's 2018, right? The TGA, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act came out effective January 1 of 18.
Okay.
Right. So remember that. So we're going back to where we were in 17. Not that different than 16. So you're right on, and the concept is right there exactly what you guys need to consider. I'm telling you, the difference between a successful retirement and a painful retirement comes down to the tax code. And the one thing we all know, whether the tax code sunsets, whether the new Biden administration is actually able to have its way with the tax code and make changes now, one way or the other, we know the tax code is a moving target. And what we want to have is the opportunity to have tax diversification, to be able to pick and choose where we take dollars from, to be able to fund your life after work, to give you the best possible financial journey, right? That doesn't mean paying the least amount of taxes today. It means paying the least amount of taxes over your journey. And you just have to hug that a little bit and get with it. And I'm very blessed. I'm the managing partner of the company and a co-founder. I choose to use the Roth portion in my 401k to contribute, and my CPA just kind of shakes his head sometimes and goes, "Really?" Yes, really. I think our taxes can only go in one direction long term. Personal opinion, and it's the way it is. I want to make sure that we have as much of that tax diversification as we can possibly have. Now, with the Secure Act that came out at the end of 2019. Effective January 1 of 2020, this is pre-COVID. Nobody thought about this thing coming to get us. The Secure Act was passed. It should be named anything but that. But it did a lot of different things. One of it moved the required minimum distribution age from age 70 and a half to 72. And it eliminated what we call the stretch IRA, so that now people have to take the money out, your heirs, not your spouse or you. But the accounts have to be emptied 10 years after the demise of the owner. But they don't have to take required minimum distributions every year. It's led a lot of people to the discussion of whether or not doing a Roth conversion still makes sense. So, Chris, what say you?
Yeah, and the main thing for those Roth conversions is who does it benefit, right? And that's the question that you have to ask yourself. And so for me, if I'm sitting down with our families and trying to evaluate if this makes sense, is that where is this family going to be taking money in retirement? When they need these funds, or if they need these funds, how can we help control their tax return while we still can? Or two, if we know that and this is really more times than not, if the family doesn't need the money, then what do we do? And so really it benefits really two people. It can benefit the person, obviously whoever's account it is, or it can benefit their heirs. When we talk about like you said with the Secure Act, they're limited to 10 years to take that money out, and though they won't have to pay any tax on it, they still have to get it out of that tax-free state. And so, for those Roth conversions, it can make sense to look at, if you're in that 12% bracket, choosing to say, hey, I'm going to pay this 12% tax because, if and when I pass away, my kids are usually going to be in their highest income earning years, and they could be paying 22, 24, 28% tax. And, really when we're talking about inheriting money, that's really where it can really make sense to start looking out just beyond yourself at this point.
Yeah. Let's not kid ourselves. I have a mom and I have two children, both adult. The youngest one married at 24. The oldest one turned 29 as of the day of this recording. Right. Yes. So, yes. We got those situations. I try to use all three tax returns. Because there's three different tax scenarios. My mom's over 70 and a half, over 72 now, yep. Right? I'm 54, and my kids, I already gave you their age. Incomes are obviously different. I try to shift and transition that income to come up with the best benefit that we can possibly come up with. And I will tell you, as you look at your wealth with what you've accumulated, especially a money that's not needed, be smart with it. I give the girls money every year at Christmas to fund their Roth IRA. You have to have earned income to fund the Roth IRA. You can't just make a gift and then fund it. That's a contribution, right? But the bottom line is, I don't know what the tax rates are going to be in the future. Neither do you. And when we do these conversions, regardless of what happened with the Secure Act and other things, the tax code is mobile, right? When you say permanent in the tax code, it ought to be in the funnies, right? It's, it takes senators to vote, to pass rules, to be able to make significant change. But it's still one of those things that you have to consider and be aware of. Those things are going to change. So, Chris, one last question. How do I determine how much to convert?
Well, really, Joe, that's really where we come into play. As a fiduciary, we sit down with each of our families because it's going to vary. When we talk about this to families, some people say, well, I'll just convert my whole IRA. And we're like, whoa, pump the brakes. That's really where it comes down to the tax return. And we won't make any decision without taking a look at the tax return first.
We had a gentleman who listened to the show who missed part of it. So let me say it again for you. If you want to do this on your own, God bless. That's your business. But if you're looking for a fiduciary, that's our business. And you can give us a call at 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com. I will always tell you to consult a financial professional in this area. Mm-hmm. We are not all created equal. There's a reason I have a CPA on my team. There's a reason I work with CPA firms in multiple different locations. There's a reason why I've been with Ed Slott in his Master Elite IRA program on the CPA side for 15 years. There's a reason for all of this. It's complex. Somebody heard the show about 3 years ago and converted $1 million all in 1 year. That is a really, really bad program. How much you convert needs to be in a systematic, thought-out process, understanding your financial journey. And that's the biggest thing I can get you to take away from this. And Chris, great job. Understand you are on a financial journey. We will use that fiduciary focus that we talked about. Whether you're doing it on your own or whether we're doing it for you, we'll use that fiduciary focus to help you understand in a next steps meeting, things you need to consider today, things you're going to want to consider in your future, and if we choose to partner together, things that we'll do for you at FEG, and we'll put it into writing. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com, get signed up for your next steps meeting. Have a great week.